Hey guys, Sleepy here. With 0.4 reaching its end with roughly a month remaining, I thought I'd take the time to recap the league as a whole and also give you some of my thoughts for 0.5 and onwards. 0.4 obviously was a pretty big patch with Last of the Druids. We got the Druid class, Oracle, Shaman Ascendancy, and tied to that we also got Shapeshifting. And honestly, all in all, I would say just that alone was super well done and fantastically implemented by GGG. I really enjoyed the shapeshifting skills. They were super smooth to play, even on, pretty much every class that you wanted to try it on. The animations and everything felt super smooth. So that was like a big W, in my opinion, in terms of the shapeshifting skills. Obviously, talking ascendancies, we also got the Disciple of Arashta, which was like a last minute addition from the teaser season and actually ended up being my favorite ascendancy in PoE 2 so far. I want to preface by saying I'm a main hardcore player in both PoE 1 and 2, so a class that is able to have like multi-defensive layers in its ascendancy, I'm all for that. So that was super fun to play. And talking about ascendancies as well, we got quite a bit of ascendancy changes. Not going to go into all of them, but the biggest win, I would say, obviously goes to Pathfinder, and which ended up being played quite a bit, also looking at the statistics. And even Smith of Kitava got some really nice buffs and some cool builds that were enabled due to these buffs. Obviously, the bigger loser in this perspective was the Deadeye getting nerfed quite heavily. Deservedly so as well. It was and had been super strong for quite a bit of time now. So it was just a matter of time, I guess. And, going over with the addition of classes, we also got passive skill changes. So a lot of new points on the tree added, some changed, and even tied to the Oracle Ascendancy, which is a super cool design choice, in my opinion, by GGG. Adding basically passive points that are hidden and only tied to the Oracle itself. Super fun to explore build options with those in mind as well. Also going over gems, uniques, and items. I mean, a lot of new gems were added. Some of them super cool, some of them pretty broken. The unique items got a big overhaul. And honestly, it did matter quite a bit. Yes, some items were changed to the point where they were way more played, or used rather. But I mean, my thoughts on the unique design in PoE 2 currently is that it feels pretty flaccid. Is probably the easiest way for me to describe it right now. I mean, even the more notable uniques in the game feels kinda, I don't know, undercooked or just plain as of now. I much prefer the unique design of PoE 1. But I mean, that this is a step in the right direction, honestly, in terms of uniques to actually make them more playable. And in time, there's only going to be more. So, I'm looking forward to that part as well. Unique items is a good or a fun part of, build making as a whole as well. So we'll see what comes with that. Obviously, something we will be going more into is endgame, but they did add some endgame changes this patch as well. Mainly the damage reduction or the anti-burst mechanic rather to the pinnacle bosses, and basically a way to stop us from just bursting down bosses instantly. I mean, now in hindsight, looking at it, that didn't really pan out to be, something that ended up working out. But, kudos to GGG for actually trying it. I don't blame, I don't blame them for it. I honestly think that there are uh, other ways they should probably go about it that are probably too big and tied more to balancing issues. But this is a good step in the right direction at the very least. Obviously, there's more to go over here in 0.4, but I thought I'd talk a bit more about just the addition of the league, Fate of the Vol League. And to not be too rambly, because there has already been numerous videos about the temple and everything as a whole, I'll say that, early on in the campaign, when the league started, it felt really good. It was a good way for us to get some more crafting additions and currency um, in the campaign. And once we reached endgame and maps, I think it sort of just fell flat. Like the altars weren't super interesting, and just the mechanic as a whole felt super confusing early on at the very least. Obviously, this ended up with GGG over buffing, in my opinion, the temple as a whole. And, that resulted us in getting one of the most inflation heavy leagues to date. I mean, probably the most inflation in a league, period. And, not to go too much into that, I think that the good parts of that is at least that a lot of new players or existing players, whatever, got to experience a lot of the end game items that were previously probably not able to be obtained through just normal, mapping. Um, so, I mean, it came with its good and its bad. I think a league like this every now and again is not the end of the world, but it's clear that one of the biggest problems with the temple is that it completely invalidated endgame mapping. So, I mean, the most currency efficient thing to do was to build up a proper temple to get all your T0 uniques, the most unique tablets, even raw currency. And I think that, in my opinion, is what, ended up being the biggest issue with the temple. Obviously, you could say, there were multiple decent ways of getting currency besides the temple, and I do agree with that. But a well-made temple was just way, 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 way better than anything else that you could do in terms of farming if we were to count the standard metric in the current PoE, which is divs per hour. So that's my thoughts on the 0.4 patch as a whole. Talking about 0.5, the biggest question obviously on many people's minds is, do we think they keep the Infinite Atlas? And in my opinion, I don't see a reason to scrap the Infinite Atlas just yet. I honestly think GGG got something really good going on here. And this is the first time they actually get the time to fully invest into the endgame changes. Prior to this, obviously, we have seen a lot of quick fixes to tedious parts in relation to, the endgame, but we haven't really seen them having time on building the Infinite Atlas and making it better. So I'm actually super excited to see what's to come. Even if they decide to scrap it somehow, I'll be down for whatever's to come to replace it. But I honestly think GGG has something going on with the Infinite Atlas that I hope they explore even further, to be honest. And honestly, because of the GGG devs, or the majority of them, plays the game quite extensively as well. I mean, they've most likely reached the pain points that we have in terms of the end game too. So I'm not too worried about them, ironing out the kinks in terms of that. So I mean, I'm all for it, and yeah, from there on, we'll see what happens, pretty much. Speaking of endgame, one bigger thing that I would like to see, honestly, is just micro progression. I think PoE 1 has a really good system where you feel like you're working towards something from map to map. And this is just not something that we see in PoE 2 right now. Like, as you get into the end game, you kind of beeline for these corrupted zones and the Nexus bosses. You kill them for your points, and you move on and, look for the next zone or the next corrupted part, and you kill that boss, and so on and so on. The maps in between there just don't really give you anything, and you don't really have a, which is also another issue, really don't have any agency in what maps you get to run. So obviously, this doesn't mean that I kind of want them to fully integrate the PoE 1 and the game system into this. But if anything, we're seeing from PoE 1 is that, having agency over the maps you're running ends up with people generally running way more different set of maps than they usually do, because they're so invested into one specific map. So, I mean, however they want to go about it, if they want to give us full agency into picking what map we want to run, or at least a few couple of maps, that's also fine. I don't mind that. That's up to them to figure out. But I would definitely like to see more micro progression at the very least. So for a comparison here in PoE 1, even in late end game, you can basically decide if you want to, if you want to kill a specific boss, like Eater of Worlds or Exarch or whatever other boss. Basically, every map you run is one step closer to facing that boss, even in the late end game. So, I mean, something like that just emphasizes and makes it so each map feels like you're, reaching one step closer to whatever it is you're doing, I think is something they definitely need to add. And I mean, speaking more of, end game stuff, bossing in general, pinnacle boss, you could say bosses, but I mean pinnacle boss, something, and mainly arbiter. I think design-wise, it does become an issue when a boss has so many one-shot mechanics. And what I mean is some of the mechanics in that fight is just one-shot mechanics no matter what, pretty much, unless you scale some absurd amounts of defenses. And this kind of makes it so that you're basically emphasized to, or incentivized to rather, to scale way more damage and get the fight over with quickly, rather than being rewarded for, scaling defensive parts, maybe prolonging the fight, but you've invested defensives to a point where you can at least manage, a mistake or two without getting one shot. And I'm not saying one shots shouldn't be a thing. Obviously, some parts that are super well telegraphed, like the, the wave phase from Arbiter, sure, that could be a one-shot mechanic. But what I'm mainly thinking about is, the mechanic where there's like a ball dropping down, and then the Arbiter does a beam attack. And if you go in too fast, you die from the beam. And if you go in too slow, you basically get one shot from the explosion outside of the ring. Like stuff like that, I would like to see get tuned down a bit more in terms of damage, at least if you've scaled enough defenses. So that's my thought on the whole bossing situation. On the bigger picture part, obviously, what I mentioned a bit before, there's a lot of balancing issues they need to tend to. Just, the way we still see 6-man groups with one guy or one player pretty much being able to kill a pinnacle boss or a Zesht in the highest difficulty in a matter of seconds, even with the addition of this damage reduction stuff, is kind of crazy. Like, there's gonna be or should be some huge overhauls in terms of, damage and scaling and stuff like that. That sort of just also ties it into, how strong should items be in comparison of getting, defense or damage and defenses from the passive skill tree as well. Because right now, I think we've reached a point where, the plus skills stuff on items is just getting sort of out of hand, the way you can scale damage. And it's probably a lot of different other things, but that's just one of those things that sticks out like a sore thumb right now, that I really think they should address as well. But I mean, all in all, I'm not going to speculate too much about what's coming in 0.5 just yet, because, you know, teaser season hasn't really started. And this is hopefully one of many to come in terms of breaking down 0.5. So, you know, feel free to share your thoughts. I would love to know what you guys are thinking in terms of 0.5. And thanks a lot for listening. Take care. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one.